Hi everyone, and welcome to the next installment of the Cosmic Calendar. So in this particular installment we're going to look at the second half of September, starting at the Pisces Full Moon on the 10th. So let's dive in. It's going to be a bit of an interesting and confusing time, I think, on the whole, because of Mercury retrograde. So that's just something to bear in mind. You might want to try and sort of wrap a few things up before we get to that point. But anyway, let's have a look in more detail, and you can note the dates in your diary for when to do what. Right, so back to September, and we can see that we start here with the 10th, and it's the full moon in Pisces, so it's happening at around about 17 degrees and 41 degrees of Pisces. Obviously, I have done a full moon forecast, so if you want access to that, then just sign up to my newsletter, which you can find on my website at astrologysphere.com/subscribe. And of course, if you are already a subscriber, then welcome to the next installment, or the next kind of part, the second half of my full moon forecast. So you can see on the same day that Mercury stations. So this full moon is going to have that kind of energy where things are going to be slowing down. Kind of, there may be the sense of, you know how sometimes when they say things kind of go into slow motion, and you have an opportunity to kind of course correct, or you just have the sense that you want to slam the brakes on and maybe change direction. That full moon, the full moon could well have that kind of feeling about it, because it is going to be quite an emotional one. You know, we are talking about the sign of Pisces, which is water, and which is very which doesn't have good boundaries, so it tends to sort of overflow, and that can obviously translate, you know, when we're talking about a full moon, in terms of like feelings of overwhelm, or just really being in the emotion ocean and not really being able to maybe see where you end and where somebody else begins, or it may be difficult also to get clarity about a situation over which you have a lot of feeling, you know, whether good or bad. So don't be surprised, as I say, if there is this slight element of kind of confusion, or of time slowing down on some level as Mercury stations and prepares, from our point of view anyway, to turn retrograde. So that's on the Saturday, and then the following day we have a trine between the Sun and Uranus, and this is because the luminaries are essentially in a positive aspect to Uranus. So it's interesting, it's almost as though things slow down enough for you to make some positive changes. It's almost like you have this, you know, sometimes when things are kind of ticking along, or when there's too much going on, we get distracted and we don't actually see, we aren't able to sort of zoom out and see the reality of a situation, or get the full picture, and so we may miss things. And I think what this full moon is kind of doing is it's bringing things to a head in such a way that but slowing things down at the same time, so that you're kind of almost able to see. It's like a car crash happening, and almost in slow motion you can course correct. And so these very positive aspects to Uranus from the moon and from the sun are giving us all a chance to course correct, to make positive changes, to maybe head in a new direction. And so I think, you know, that's the positive side of this full moon, is to see it as being an opportunity to make positive changes in your life. You know, either sort of personal changes in terms of external decisions, maybe kind of heading in a new and exciting direction, or it could be, as I say, making internal changes, because of course at a full moon we are essentially things come to a head and then they start to close out. So it's a good time to decide what you want to sort of like remove from your life, and that could be you know, people, places, or things, or it could be habits, you know, patterns that you keep repeating. It'll be different for everyone depending on, first of all, where Mercury falls in your chart, and then also, you know, where these planets are going to fall, where the Sun and the Moon are going to be in terms of the sort of the Virgo Pisces axis, and of course Uranus, because that will definitely point to the sort of life area that it, you know, is best suited or kind of optimal for making changes. So that's Sunday, and it's quite a good day, I think, to be able to kind of pause and take stock and not really have to think about anything else. So you can really kind of go deep and you know, kind of write things down, journal, and write out pros and cons lists, and whatever. But the thing with Uranus is that it's normally quite quick, and sometimes, of course, these changes can come from the outside. You know, Uranus is an outer planet, so Sometimes it can come in the form of sudden plot twists, change in events, and also cutting. You know, with Uranus, because it was discovered at around about the time of the French Revolution, there can be the sense of suddenly cutting something off, or you know, a kind of like a severing of some kind. And that could be, say, somebody leaving, a situation suddenly ending, things moving off in a different direction, or like, you know, like flipping the switch, like the power, you know, you sort of flip the switch and you cut off the power, say, to, you know, like if a piece of technology is sort of malfunctioning, you can just flip the switch and kind of stop things from going any further. It's that kind of sense, and sometimes it can happen quite quickly and unexpectedly. So be prepared for the unexpected, but just know that ultimately, even if things seem maybe a little bit disastrous, or don't necessarily, that it's not always clear, you know, maybe it isn't clear at the time, that ultimately the changes are you know, going to be for the best for, you know, with those very positive aspects between the Sun, the Moon, and Uranus. So I think that's the best way to sort of see this. But of course, the next day we have a quincunx between the Sun and Saturn, and that may be asking you to make some adjustments. So of course, there is always that feeling afterwards, you know, even if you've kind of like called a day on a job or a situation or whatever the case may be, there's always that feeling afterwards of kind of loss and grief, where you have to sort of process things, or maybe where you sort of think, oh God, did I act in haste? And then you have to sort of like maybe take remedial action of some kind, or just, you know, do damage limitation, or just sort of sit in the energy of, okay, what, you know, is this the right thing to do? Is there anything, are there any kind of loose ends that I need to sort of tie up? Do I need to make an apologies? You know, just sort of patiently going through any obstacles, and or kind of downsides to a situation, and sort of like mentally checking them off. So kind of going, okay, that wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right decision. And, you know, just sort of having that sort of difficult conversation with yourself that we sometimes have to have about, okay, this doesn't feel good, but maybe it was actually for the best, and just sort of acknowledging that, and then having the courage to actually do the difficult thing. So if it means, as I say, walking away from a situation, even though you may have sort of emotional ties to it, you know, kind of, if you're sort of seeing that it's sort of right for you, there's something better for you, or on some level maybe it wasn't healthy, or it was just keeping you stuck in a rut, or whatever the case may be, then, you know, this is that kind of reality check moment of kind of going, okay, this doesn't necessarily feel good, but not everything does feel good, that there is a natural, it's natural to sort of to feel loss or grief, or sadness about the ending of something, but then we kind of pick ourselves up and we carry on, and we get on with our lives, type of thing. And then there isn't really much happening for the rest of the week until we get to Friday the 16th. And here the Sun is now making an opposition to Neptune. So, and we have a square between Venus and Mars. So I would expect that this week is likely to be quite tumultuous, as I say, particularly for things like relationships with Venus and Mars. But of course, Venus and Mars also rule things like, you know, like art, and money, and like physical health, our sort of style of taking action or not, physical activity, all of those kind of things. So there could be a lot of ways that this energy could work, but nonetheless, I think that it's likely to be a day where we are feeling a little bit maybe sad or disillusioned. Again, a little bit of confusion with that opposition between the Sun and Neptune, which will feed into this Mercury retrograde energy that we do have. That's kind of in play, you know, for the rest of the month, and I think that's to be expected. I think you should just sort of try and build in contingency plans, you know, plan B, or just accept that things are not necessarily going to go as quickly or smoothly as we like, and kind of, it's almost like once you make peace with that notion, then if anything does go well or better than expected, then we're sort of pleasantly surprised. You know, that's that kind of energy. But it can be a time when we feel, as I say, a little bit confused, a bit down, where we can have trouble making clear decisions, or, you know, or sort of reason in a logical way. So we can sometimes, you know, kind of kid ourselves or talk ourselves out of something. So, you know, if you are worried about that, you might want to sort of have your best friend who tells you the truth, no matter how harsh it is on hand, just to sort of help you maintain perspective, you know, whether that's you being too negative about a situation, or whether it's, you know, you were right to walk away, and don't sort of kid yourself like otherwise, type of thing. And with Venus and Mars, you know, this is the classic sort of battle of the sexes, where there is this clash between sort of masculine and feminine energy, which can manifest in, you know, in terms of relationships. It can be that, you know, that the masculine sort of aspect wants to be like free and doing other things, because it's in Gemini. So there's this sense of like maybe being ambivalent, not being 100% committed to something. And Venus is, of course, in Virgo, which likes, you know, detail, precision, needs to know exactly where they stand. So it could be that that's the problem, is that Mars is being a little bit evasive or vague, non-committal, and Venus wants to sort of nail things down. There are a lot of ways that this energy could work, and I do talk about it a bit in the full moon forecast in more detail, but I think it's fair to say that there's a clash or a conflict of either values or of like needs or wants or desires, possibly creative aesthetics, or differences of opinion about how to go about something, whether this has to do with money or with like a creative project. And I think that the key thing is to try to sort of allow for differences. You know, I think that Sun, Neptune energy, and the sort of the Pisces energy of the full moon is all about kind of accepting or surrendering, and sometimes that is the best course of action. You know, it's not necessarily always like in our interests to like fight or kind of assert ourselves or feel that we have to sort something out immediately. You know, sometimes things are best left to be sort of sorted out in their own time, and you may sort of feel that possibly you know, you're almost sort of, it's like walking through a tree, or trying to sort of push a rock uphill now, that it's very difficult to actually as I say, make clear decisions, or to sort of get things done. So, you know, if that is the case, then maybe just wait until another day when you feel more decisive, or when you feel more confident, or when it's clearer what you should sort of do. You know, I think the best way to use Mercury retrograde is to sort of review, to go over, to reassess, you know, maybe talk things through with somebody else to get clarity, and only when you feel clear again, you know, then kind of make a decision. I mean, I think, you know, it's important to say that things do improve the following week with the energy. So as I say, it may just be a case of putting things off for better times at this point. And then the next day on the 17th, we have another quincunx between Venus and Chiron. So this is an opportunity to, again, to say goodbye to painful associations or ways of doing things, or habits, or that type of thing that are just not working, and to sort of really focus on healing. You know, Chiron is a great healer, and it's so often about those wounds where we feel that we don't belong, where we're not accepted, where we've been rejected, where we feel alienated, or just freaky, you know, different, that kind of thing. So it is giving us an opportunity to pivot towards more positive relationships, whether that be with ourselves, with another person, with money, with our creative process, whatever the case may be. You know, Venus, you'll have to look to see where Venus, what kind of houses it rules in your chart, where it's located, etc., to sort of see how this is going to work on an individual level. But I think, you know, on a collective level, it is really about letting go of what's not working, and having the courage to do that, because better things are coming, as we'll see when we get to the energies for the following week. So moving to the Sunday, we have one last difficult aspect, and that's an opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. Now, we've had this aspect before. We had it on the 3rd of September, so it's a repeat of that energy, because, you know, Mercury is now retrograde, so it's moving back towards Jupiter. So, you know, if things, for whatever reason, if you had a difference of opinion with somebody, maybe an argument, or your thinking about something was maybe like a little bit faulty or overconfident, or you know, you want to revise your opinion on something, then now's a good day to do that. But I mean, you could find, as I say, that you and another person have a bit of a standoff again, where you are both at opposite ends of a sort of a polarity. And, you know, as with any opposition, the best thing is to try and meet in the middle, and you know, if not, then just accept, you know, agree to differ, that type of thing. But it is about mentally pushing your limits. Sometimes it can be about, you know, learning and travel, It certainly has to do with judgment, and as I say, don't be surprised if during this particular week of the Mercury retrograde that your judgment is a little bit blunted, if you like, or stunted. And then just reserve the right to sort of give an opinion or a decision at a later date. I think that's probably the best way to sort of work with this energy, because as we'll see, the energies that follow this are really, really positive. But interestingly, Mars then, after coming off of that square to Venus, we've got Venus making a quincunx to Chiron, but we've got Mars making a sextile. So this is, again, it's another opportunity for the Mars aspect. Now this could be the sort of divine masculine within ourselves, or it could be somebody who represents that sort of masculine energy that we're in relationship with. Also getting an opportunity to heal on some level. So this is kind of love, pain, the whole damn thing. Time to take, it can be about healing rifts, or it can be about sort of like internal healing, and that could be physical with Mars, certainly it can be about the physical body, about energy levels, or it can just be about pivoting and directing your energy more positively towards something that's going to be more constructively beneficial to you. If you have been sort of like throwing good money after bad in the sort of the literal or the metaphorical sense. So yes, I think it's very much a time of kind of pivoting, of letting go, and this is all falling into this notion of kind of making positive changes. Sometimes before we can sort of what is that saying? We have to lose sight of the old, of sort of of the shore before we can discover new land. So there's that sense of having to first close something out, or sort of let go of something, or process kind of grief or loss on one level, and then that allows us to make space for something better to come in. And I mean, as I say, the energies from then onwards are pretty positive. So we've got on the 19th we've got the Sun making a trine to Pluto, and of course again this is excellent for very sort of self-empowered change, kind of really making sometimes quite dramatic changes to our lives. Pluto can be about catharsis and about letting go again. It can be about deep healing. It can be about regeneration. Again, it will depend on how these planets work in your natal chart as to the specifics, but it's certainly about that very instinctive drive to make changes, and it is a lot about self-empowerment, about feeling, kind of coming into your power, coming into your truth, standing in it, and then making changes that are going to align you with that more sort of clearly. And then the next day, Venus makes a trine to Uranus, so again echoing the energy of the Sun on the 11th. And again, I think this feeds into what I was saying about making positive changes when it comes to things like relationships, creative projects, and sort of money matters. Of course, it could also have something to do with physical appearance, if you've got Venus in the first house, for example, or you've got Venus rising or something like that. But it could also be a time when exciting new creative people, projects, or sort of situations suddenly come into your life. And the key thing is to sort of be open to the new, to say yes, to kind of say why not, and to sort of go with the flow. To welcome change into your life, because it's with the positive aspects, with the trine, it certainly does kind of bode well. So, you might have kind of unusual, quirky people coming into your life now, and even though they might not be your usual type of people, I think that the key is to sort of open yourself up to the opportunity to sort of maybe explore like other areas of your identity, or your your creativity, or whatever this person sort of stirs up in you. But it's definitely about positive changes. And then we don't have again aspects until the 23rd, when Mercury moves back into Virgo, so giving you an opportunity to sort of get more precision in terms of things like communication, maybe things you've written, to tick things off your to-do list, or to redo things that you didn't feel you did properly the first time round. It's a good time to draw up things like schedules, to go back and rearrange your diary, and to just generally kind of get organized. It's really good for mental organization. So as I say, if you were feeling a bit woolly on the 16th with that Sun-Neptune opposition, now is a good time to sort of try and clarify and organize and sort of get a little bit more clear. And then, of course, on the same day, this is also the day of the equinox, and that's when the Sun ingresses into the sign of Libra. So again, it's a day that kind of has to do with balance. It's when the Sun reaches the equator, and moves from one hemisphere to another. So it's essentially a tipping point when we either move from kind of summer into winter, or when we move from winter into summer, depending on what hemisphere we're sort of based in. So this is about a time of diplomacy. Generally speaking, this is Libra season, a time for diplomacy, for kind of peacekeeping, or for seeking justice or more balance. There's a lot here about harmony, symmetry, and beauty. And it's also a good time to sort of socialize with loved ones and that kind of thing. It's interesting that the Sun and Mercury will be making a conjunction, because, as I say, they are kind of passing each other and going in opposite directions. So it's almost like ships in the night. So it'll be interesting to see how that energy manifests, as to whether it manifests in literally you and another person sort of bumping into each other, maybe an old friend or somebody you haven't seen for a while, and sort of having a wonderful kind of reunion, or whether it's the sense of kind of encountering something from your past, whether it's a thought, whether it's something you wrote maybe a long time ago that you'd forgotten about, whatever the case may be, and then having it sort of give you a little aha moment or a little light bulb kind of almost going off, and perhaps setting you off on a sort of an interesting thought trajectory, something like that, a chance meeting that sort of moves you in a different direction. And then on the 24th, we have a slightly less positive sort of aspect. We've got Venus making opposition to Neptune, so similar to the Sun on the 16th. You can see that the Sun and Venus are sort of shadowing each other. And again, this could be tricky for relationships. So it can be a time where if we have decided to sort of walk away from a romantic situation, with that Venus-Mars square, we may sort of now doubt our sort of decision-making ability. Did we do the right thing? We can sometimes be a little bit gullible or impressionable right now, and we can also kid ourselves. So it's a very important time, not to make big or important life decisions, and to sort of, as I say, have that friend on standby who's going to sort of like talk some sense into us if we are having a sort of like a weak moment, or kind of doubting ourselves, or just sort of sinking into a little bit of a depression. You might want to find somebody who is going to sort of cheer you up and take you out and distract you, that kind of thing. And we can also want to escape. There can be the sense of wanting to sort of like, to take off somewhere, or to sort of like hide from the world and watch box sets, or that kind of thing. And of course, that energy isn't necessarily a bad thing, if you don't have any other responsibilities and you do want to just lose yourself in a story, or visit an art gallery, or watch an inspirational film. Sometimes stories can be a really good way to process, things that are going on with us. So not necessarily a bad thing. It's just all about context, and sort of like, first of all, having good boundaries, because, as I say, Neptune does tend to make us drop our boundaries and make us compromise on our values. But also, just having a safe space where we can sort of like maybe collapse into a messy heap, without sort of feeling that it's you're going to be judged, or you're going to be vulnerable, or anything like that. So making a sort of a safe space for yourself in which to sort of to do that, scream, cry, or whatever the case may be, and then do it in privacy, and then kind of pick yourself up and sort of move on again. Not much happening on the Sunday, and then on Monday the 26th, things get quite busy again. So we've got the Sun opposing Jupiter, we've got Mercury and Venus sort of meeting up, and then we've also got Venus making a trine to Pluto. So you can see that the Mercury does the same thing the next day to sort of follow suit. So the Sun, Venus and Mercury slowly kind of coming together, because they do tend to sort of stay within close proximity of each other. I think Venus is never more than 60 degrees away from the Sun, and Mercury slightly less so. So it's kind of an interesting time, I think, of trying to sort of to make decisions and like get clear about your values, and have like interactions with other people in a way that's going to bring you clarity, and that's going to bring you that's healthy. If you think about Venus and Mercury, they are both in the sign of Virgo, and Virgo is so much about health and about discernment, and that was a big theme at the Virgo new moon that we had at the beginning of September. So this is this real kind of sense of needing to get clear about what you value, what's healthy for you, and then making changes that are going to again bring that in. So, with the Venus Pluto trine, there's a sense of needing to get really kind of honest with yourself, with others, about what you value, what's important to you, what your needs are, voicing those, and then being brave enough, if somebody isn't able to meet those, to kind of go, okay, that's fine, but I need to sort of like make some changes here, or maybe move in a different direction, or that kind of thing. But I mean, it is with the trine, it is a positive thing. I think it has probably more to do with a change of values and a change of mindset, given that we are talking about Venus and Mercury here. And with the Sun opposing Jupiter, it could be that somebody else is trying to sort of weigh in or interfere or give you advice, and perhaps they're well-meaning, but they don't necessarily fully understand the situation, or are, I don't know, just maybe a little bit overconfident in terms of their judgment, that they think, my way is the only way type of thing, my truth is the only truth. And I think that, probably best to sort of distance yourself from people that are overbearing or self-righteous, or that want to sort of meddle, and just try and find a place of clarity, with that Pluto, to try and come into a place of self-empowerment, where you kind of feel like, I can do this, I can I'm not saying like don't rely on other people. It's just that sense of like self-reliance, that you have the capability within yourself to kind of step into your power, whether it is through your kind of reasoning abilities, or your ability to discern what your needs or your values are, and then being able to sort of have the confidence to sort of make decisions that are going to move you closer sort of towards that truth or that power, move you in a kind of a positive direction. And I think what will be helping you will be this trine that's happening on the 28th between Mars and Saturn. So this is really a fantastic combination for making a decision, and then constructively making things happen. It's about sort of focus, it's about discipline, it's about endurance, and it's really about accomplishment. You can move mountains with this kind of energy. It's really helps you to push through blocks, obstacles, whether those be internal or sort of external, to make progress, to take constructive action that's going to sort of lead somewhere. So in that sense, really, really positive, fabulous for work of all kinds. But equally, I think important for pushing through some of this more nebulous, sometimes slightly flaky energy of Neptune, that can make us kind of go, I don't really know what to do for the best, and sort of become a bit apathetic, or sometimes a little bit feel sorry for ourselves, or become want to escape, through numbing, or sort of activities that are sort of designed to sort of be pleasurable escapes, but aren't necessarily going to get us where we need to go, if you know what I mean. So I think this Mars Saturn trine can really help us to have the discipline and endurance to sort of to move forward, to make progress, to take action, constructive action towards something that is going to be better for us in the long term. And then on the 29th, Venus moves into her own sign of Libra, so we'll have both the Sun and Venus in Libra now. And hopefully that should sort of bring in a more harmonious time for us in terms of relationships, money and creativity, that things should start to settle down a little bit. That this period could potentially be quite intense, that it's not necessarily the easiest sort of time in which to sort of to kind of operate. But yeah, I mean, as I say, we do have the new moon in Libra, which happens on the 25th, and I think that should really help us to sort of have that's the emotional impetus, and that's sort of subconscious impetus that we need to sort of make a fresh start or a change. So anyway, I've kind of gone a little bit further than I usually do with my forecast, so I'm going to stop there, and I'll pick up again from the new moon on the 25th again, just to kind of recap. But I hope that's been helpful. Yes, just be good to yourself and be kind to yourself over the next couple of weeks, and I'll see you again in a fortnight or so for our next update.